Hello, in this video we will learn how to find inverse functions. So in a previous video I talked about what an inverse function is. So just to recap a little bit, if you had f of x and g of x, let's say that this is equal to y and this is equal to y prime, they would be inverses of each other if you were to take the f of the g of x and get x back. That is basically the definition of the inverse of an inverse function. So now, there are multiple ways of finding it. You can either do it using the basic definition, which is a little bit difficult because it's really hard to find exactly g of x. So there's another way of doing it. So to find the inverse of a function, what you have to do first is to flip x and y. So, what does this mean? This means that every time you see an x, you substitute it with a y and vice versa. And then you just solve for y to have your final function. Solve for y. So very well, now let's see an example. Let's say we had f of x is equal to 2x plus 3 and we wanted to find g of x where f of g of x is equal to x. Also, you might see it like this. It's exactly the same thing because if g is the inverse of f, f is the inverse of g. So these are exactly equivalent. But now, let's find g of x, having f of x is equal to 2x plus 3. So let's say that f of x is equal to 2x plus 3 is equal to y. And so we flip x and y. So whenever we see an x, like right here, we will substitute it with a y. And whenever we see a y, like right here, we will substitute it with an x. Now we will just solve for y to have our final function. So we subtract 3 to both sides. 2y is equal to x minus 3. Now we divide by 2 both sides. We get y is equal to x over 2 minus 3 over 2. And this is our final inverse function. Now, to make sure that this is right, let's try finding f of g of x and g of f of x, just to make sure that everything makes sense and that everything comes together. So g of x, let's call this y prime to know that this is g of x. So g of x is this function that we found. So, and we know that f of x is 2x plus 3. So by having this, we know that the x in f of x will be substituted by whatever g of x is. In this case, it's this kind of complicated equation. So this is equal to 2 times x over 2 minus 3 over 2 plus 3. See, so here is where x was, and we substituted by whatever g of x was. Okay, so now we will try to simplify this a little bit to make sure that everything is the same. So 2 times x over 2 is equal to x. 2 times negative 3 over 2 is equal to negative 3. And then plus 3. These two cancel out. And we get that f of g of x is equal to x, which is, as you might recall, exactly the definition of what the inverse function is right here. And now just to make sure that everything is congruent, now let's find g of f of x, and let's make sure that that is equal to x. So we do exactly the same thing. Now instead of having the x right here in g of x, we will substitute it with whatever f of x is. So we have 2 of x plus 3 over 2 minus 3 over 2. So here is where x used to be, and now here we have plugged in f of x, which is how we find g of f of x. So now by doing this, we divide 2x divided by 2, and we find that that's x. 3 over 2, that's just 3 over 2, minus 3 over 2. These two cancel out again, and we get that g of f of x is in fact equal to x. So everything worked out, and everything is congruent.